Just left my house, going to Australia.
Welcome to Modern Grand Tour with me, Garland Lowe. After completing the European leg of my round the world journey, we now arrive in the world's largest country, Russia. Riding the full length of the famous Trans-Siberian Railway, we'll couchsurf with locals along the way to get an insider's view of the fascinating Russian culture. Beginning in the western part of this Eurasian country, my new Russian friends and I explore St. Petersburg, Moscow, Vladimir Suzdal, Nizhny Novgorod, Perm and Yekaterinburg. Then in the eastern part we discover Tobolsk and Tumen, Novosibirsk, Irkutsk and Okhotsk Island, Ulan-Ude, Khabarovsk and finally Vladivostok. In this first episode of this Russian leg of my journey and the 9th episode of this Modern Grand Tour series, we'll see the world's most expensive eggs, go urban exploring in an abandoned factory, and most importantly, make friends with the locals.
We've been on the moon.
Oh my god, don't do that.
So let's explore Russia's cultural capital and the most beautiful of her cities, St. Petersburg.
We're walking down Nevsky Prospect, which is like the main street of St. Petersburg. Pretty classical looking. I think this is what I kind of expected actually from St. Petersburg. Very grand. This is certainly pre-communist architecture. Yeah, it feels like I'm in sort of old Empire Russia. It feels like a big city, just because of the size of this road. Lots of people, lots of shops. I mean, it looks really grand. It looks amazing. I'm totally flabbergasted by what I'm seeing. Even just like the shops are amazing. So just turn around the corner and I've turned into this. It's massive.
Palace Square is unsurprisingly the main square in St. Petersburg and plays a pivotal role in the history of Russia. So let's break down Russia's history to put things in context. Cue Russian national anthem. The Kievan Rus is created in the 9th century when the Vikings established Kiev as the capital of their trading route, controlling the local tribes. The Golden Horde is created in 1240 as the Mongol Empire become overlords of the Kievan Rus. The Tsardom of Russia is created in 1547 when, with the Mongols departed, Moscow's leader Ivan the Terrible crowns himself Russia's first Tsar, meaning Caesar, and he and his successors expand east into previous Mongol territory. The Russian Empire is created in 1721 when Tsar Peter the Great moves the capital from Moscow to St. Petersburg, allowing for maritime trade and the inflow of cultural enlightenment ideas from Europe. The USSR is created in 1922 when, after the 1917 Russian Revolution, Vladimir Lenin declares Russia the world's first socialist state and consolidates his power by uniting the surrounding socialist regions. And finally, the Russian Federation is created in 1991 when the USSR falls apart and it sees authoritarian communism replaced by authoritarian capitalism. Now, Palace Square is important in Russia's history because it was the location of the pivotal 1917 Russian Revolution, which actually consists of 2 revolutions. The February Revolution saw 8 days of mass protest against food shortages and Russia's failure in the First World War, which led to Tsar Nicholas II abdicating, ending the 1,000-year monarchy that began with the Kievan Rus. The October Revolution saw the storming of the Winter Palace on Palace Square, which not only created the world's first socialist state, but also the devastating Russian Civil War, the deep mistrust of the Cold War, and an autocratic presidency. Which all in all makes Palace Square not just important in the history of Russia, but important in the history of the modern world.
Another thing about St. Petersburg is how much you're exposed to the water. So it goes down and then it just opens up. So you've got all of that bit as well. So it's massive.
And the explanation for St. Petersburg's massive Neva River begins in 1697, when Tsar Peter the Great travels to the Netherlands, England and Germany on a kind of working grand tour, which he calls a grand embassy. Impressed with enlightened European culture, he returns to Russia after a year and a half and begins his modernising reforms, including replacing the old-fashioned Byzantine calendar, introducing a nobility system based on merit, ending arranged marriages, promoting European dress, and rather bizarrely, banning beards. But the most important thing that Peter learnt in Europe was shipbuilding. because on his return to Russia, Peter sets out to find land that is connected to the Baltic Sea. And when he sees the massive Neva River, he states, "Here will be a city." And this is the very first building constructed. Built in 1703, the Peter and Paul Fortress was designed for the Great Northern War against Sweden, where Russia, helped by its new navy in the Baltic, would be victorious. Thereupon recognised as a new European power, Russia officially becomes the Russian Empire. Other than being the city's first building, the fortress is also known for housing a political prison for dissidents such as Dostoevsky, Trotsky and Tito, a cathedral where 13 of the 15 Russian Empire Tsars are buried, and my favourite, a statue, where the artist has exaggerated the real-life features of Peter the Great, who really was a giant at 6'8" and who was said to have an abnormally small head, which judging from this statue meant he looked like a freakish alien robot from a Tim Burton horror film or the good bad guy from Despicable Me. The Fabergé Museum displays the works of the renowned jeweller Carl Fabergé, who is most famous for creating the spectacularly decorated Easter eggs for the Tsar's wife. Of the 50 eggs made, 9 are held by the Fabergé Museum at the value of over $100 million, making each of these eggs worth around $11 million each. Notably, the very first egg in the series is the hen, a white egg with a gold yolk which inside lies a chicken. The Tsar's wife was so delighted that a new egg was ordered every Easter thereafter. The Renaissance, the Rosebud, the Imperial Coronation, the Lilies of the Valley, the Cockerel, the Bay Tree, the 15th anniversary, and finally the Order of St. George, which is also the very last egg in the series before the 1917 Russian Revolution. The next day, I walked with my couchsurfing host Karina to a place of work, which was a governmental building called the Smolny Institute, where 100 years ago it also happened to be the headquarters of Vladimir Lenin's Bolshevik Party.
So Karina, can you just tell me what this says again?
This is the first Soviet of proletarian dictatorship.
Wow, so we are at the cradle of communism. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Marx, pretty important man in your history, as well as Engels. Together they wrote Communist Manifesto.
Yes.
And that obviously gave rise to Lenin's thoughts and to his movement.
April thesis, you know, one of the most famous of Lenin's work is April thesis.
Oh, I've never heard of this one.
Yeah, it was right before the revolution, like half a year before the revolution.
Right.
When he just summed up everything that he thought should have occurred in Russia.
So kind of like his Mein Kampf. Obviously they had...
Oh my god, don't do that!
April Theses provides the fundamental ideas of socialism, which for the masses at the time would have been figuratively and literally revolutionary. So let's explore this a little further. After the 1917 February Revolution, which saw the Tsar's abdication, a provisional government was formed made up of mostly liberal socialists who supported parliamentary democracy. However, Lenin's Bolshevik Party were authoritarian socialists who argued that all power be in the hands of workers' councils, known in Russian as Soviets. To rally the Bolsheviks, Lenin wrote a 10-point thesis declaring no support for the First World War, bourgeois power to transfer to proletariat power, no support for the capitalist government, a need for systematic propaganda, fair salaries, nationalisation of lands, nationalisation of banks, control of production and distribution, a name change to the Communist Party, and lastly, a need for an international association of communists. Finally, in October, after Lenin had rallied enough support with the slogan "All power to the Soviets," the Bolsheviks stormed the Winter Palace occupied by the provisional government, and Lenin's Soviet Russia was established.
Lenin proudly pointing. They like to point, don't they? I've just realised. Statues like to point, and they also like to be on horses. So he's going for the former. Sometimes they point on a horse. Really, they point at a horse. Although he could be pointing at a horse. We don't know that.
Whilst Karina was at work, I went to visit St. Petersburg's 3 most famous churches. Completed in 1811, Kazan Cathedral is the main church in St. Petersburg, and like much of the city, is modelled on European architecture, in particular St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican City. When the atheistic communists took over, churches were appropriated for other functions, with the Kazan Cathedral being turned into the Museum of the History of Religion and Atheism. Other church transformations include a library, a cinema, and even a swimming pool. St Isaac's Cathedral, completed in 1858, is the largest and maybe most fun church in St Petersburg.
So I think this is the biggest door I've ever seen. Feels like a Lord of the Rings door. Thou shalt not pass. Basically, I just paid like £2 to go up. To walk, I paid £2 to walk upstairs. Is what's happened. Apparently, there's a view. I don't know why people like views. I like views. Gotta keep walking. Gotta keep walking. Gotta keep walking. Walking all day long. So there's like a new bit. What on earth is this? Man, lucky I'm skinny. Christ. Oh, this is cool. It's like Jurassic Park. Look at this! Oh my god! Oh my god, the view is amazing. This is the view from my east buttock. That is the Palace Square, like the main square of St Petersburg. That is where I'm going next. So the Church of Spilled Blood. I think it's time to go and have a look.
The church on Spilled Blood is, as its name suggests, built on the exact site where Tsar Alexander II was assassinated by a grenade thrown by a political revolutionary. This extravagantly adorned memorial church, completed in 1907, is consequently deliberately built in the Russian medieval style and not in the European Baroque and neoclassical design of the rest of the city, as a protest to the Western ideas of socialism spreading in Russia at the time.
Just reading the sign here. Alexander II was mortally wounded on this spot. That's why it's called the Church of the Spilled Blood. So I just saw some tourists having their photo taken with this guy, and I walked up to him and I said, "Is this Stalin?" And they said, "Niet." Interesting question rose, and that's, did I offend those people when I asked them, is that Stalin? Because it wasn't like, niet, it was like, niet. But I wasn't 100% sure if I did offend them or not. Because, you know, Russians can be quite cold like that. Just like, they say niet, but you know, they're really happy. They're actually really happy, greeting you. So that's something I'm going to ask Karina later on. How is Stalin looked upon by Russians today?
Obviously, the key opinions are different.
Right.
Some people consider him like an effective manager. He won the industrial revolution basically in Soviet Union.
Yeah, man, he got things done.
But others think that he's just a tyrant who like sent his own people to camps, you know, and in the whole country almost didn't have any monuments.
Ah, interesting.
They were destroyed right after his death. It's a thing. It's called the destruction of the Stalin's cult. It's a complex view on him. In Russia, we don't have really official view on him. Like, for example, in Germany, they have on Hitler.
On the other hand, this guy, he's a hero. Is he not a hero? Because he has statues, right?
More positive image. For some people, it's like a hero who tried to destroy the bourgeoisie, who had like great ideas of the communist future when everything is free or something like that. But others consider him the person who destroyed the country. All of his goals led us to the civil war. People were killed during that, and the officers, the top of Russian army, they were either
murdered or sent away?
Yes, that's the main.
Okay.
Karina and I then relaxed with some Russian tea and cake in a spectacular panoramic view cafe, allowing me to recharge my batteries to prepare for the next day's exploration.
About to order some Russian food from a fast food outlet called Petersburg. Yeah, here's what I ordered. This is like a condensed milk breakfast thing. These are like some fried, I think, potatoes, and this is like buckwheat, like plain kind of buckwheat with some fried onions and a little bit of veg. That's good. Exactly what it says. It's condensed milk with a slight semolina kind of texture in there. I'm about to have the next of my Russian meals. It's these fried, I don't know what they are. It's like sweet fried cake. Not amazing, but fills a hole. Just trying the buckwheat now. No, that's pretty plain. That needs some sauce. Not ordering that one again. Now I need to find out where the entrance is for the Hermitage Museum. I think it's there.
The Hermitage Museum is the second largest museum in the world after the Louvre in Paris, and its initial collection of European art helped the Russian Empire continue to reinvent itself as an enlightened society, gaining the respect of the European aristocracy. But it was only after the October Revolution in 1917 that saw the Hermitage drastically transform into the museum of today. First, after the storming of the Winter Palace, the Bolsheviks incorporated the palace into the Hermitage Museum, where today it is the main building and front entrance. And second, as the Soviet states confiscated privately owned art from the wealthy, the museum's collection tripled. Today, the main collection spans 5 buildings, and it is said that if you spend 1 minute looking at every item, you would need 11 years, which doesn't even include marvelling at the Baroque interiors, which is mainly what I did.
The building is absolutely nuts. This is the most impressive building. Look at that! A hall intended for balls and receptions. I could imagine a ball and a reception here. Look at all these guys. You're surrounded by them. It's a little bit like football stickers. This guy here, I've got 2 of him. I'll swap you my double for... It's like he's got them all, except this fella. Oh, they're all looking at this one. Look. Why are they all looking at this one? Does that mean something? Don't know that one. Probably really famous. I'm just like, just walking past it. So that's why everyone was crowding around, because it's Da Vinci. Who's your favourite Leonardo? Leonardo Turtle, Leonardo da Vinci, Leonardo DiCaprio, or Leonardo, Brazilian left winger. Here's an interesting thing. Very plain room, very plain wall, until you fall over. And once you fall over, you go, oh, I'm falling over. Ah, what's that? This could be the National Gallery in London. When I do that, you go, whoa, where's that in the National Gallery? I'm now in like the armour room. I find all the guys are here, but where are the women? Women are looking at the vases and the jewellery, and the guys are thinking, yes, let's do them. These are the olden day football hooligans. So now I'm in the white classical marble age. It's like Crystal Maze. It's like running through different areas. Aztec zone, let's go. That staircase. That is the grandest staircase I've ever seen. They should have definitely made this a swim pool. Look how cool the floor is. Imagine if you had a floor like this at home. I mean, the floor's better than the art. Wow, this is a cool room. It's all gone very Harry Potter. Nicholas II's library. The English Gothic motifs are used. It's got a kind of Oxford charm about it, if I say so myself. Rocks. I've come too far back now, that's it. I'm done with this museum.
With me being all museumed out at the enormous Hermitage, it was time to head back into the city centre and onto the deepest subway network in the world.
So I'm just going to time how long it takes to get there. So there we go.
Due to St. Petersburg being built on swampy ground, the metro had to be dug deep under the river Neva, 282 foot deep to be exact for its deepest station, Admiraltyskaya. about the height of the Statue of Liberty, which must be annoying if you're in a rush and have to wait on the escalator. So let's see how long the escalator at Admiralteyskaya takes.
I'm almost at the end, but as you can see, I'm going to look down here, it is 3 minutes and 15 seconds from the top to the bottom. That's nuts.
So for my last activity in St. Petersburg, I unusually chose to do something that was neither particularly cultural or historical, but rather simply awesome. Meeting Giuseppe, an Italian tour guide who had come to St. Petersburg to learn Russian, he took me to an abandoned factory that had once been Europe's largest maker of rubber goods during the Soviet era, but had gone bankrupt after its collapse.
Right, here we go. Walking through the abandoned building. I've got to watch my step. Giuseppe's got the flashlight, so that's good. He's leading the way.
Not bad, huh?
Oh, it's amazing.
So, that is exactly where we are going.
Oh, wow.
Carefully, eh?
Okay, yeah.
Just one thing. It's very important for your future that you watch what is there. Whoa. Yeah. Now, it's easy. One step here, one step here.
Oh, woo! That was tough. That last getting up there. You've got to be quiet for some reason. Let's go. Grab.
Yes, I'm serious.
Whoa, okay. Oh man. It's like every turn there's a new thing, isn't it? Oh. Okay.
But still,
Oh.
it is not bad.
Hello, St. Petersburg. After a few leaps, a few jumps, a few climbs, got my gloves, trousers all dirty, trainers probably got glass in them everywhere, but we finally got ahead of it, Giuseppe.
Guys,
And now celebrate your drink.
you want some tea? Cheers.
We was talking earlier about what was amazing about this for me, and I think it's to do with life, this idea that this building once was full of life. Loads of individual workers and bosses and the products they made, and suddenly it was abandoned, and now there's no more workers, no more products, no more individual stories. And so I feel privileged to kind of just bring some energy to this building again. And yeah, it feels, because buildings are made to be used, and this hasn't been used for a very long time. So I think for us to come up here, if the building could speak, I think it would say thanks for coming up, bringing energy to this space. We went up, walked all around,
Then we climb.
and then we kind of obviously down bottom, then we climbed up here to get to this bit. So Giuseppe, what attracts you to this?
It's a good question, huh? I guess mainly it's, I don't know, it's hard to put in words, but the sensation, every time that I come into those places, I have the feeling that I'm a ghost. like a ghost that is exploring a place where there used to be, like for example in this case, used to be a factory, so you can see the life that is not here anymore, and you can feel it. That's what makes me alive, you know, and I love it.
I'm in the Moscow station. Well, it's called the Moscow station. It's where you go to get to Moscow from St. Petersburg. Aptly named the Moscow station.
Good.
I'm gonna start learning stuff from my book. Меня зовут Galen.
Kalin.
Да, Galen.
Kalin.
Да. Как вас зовут?
Ой, у меня длинная. Валентина.
Valentina.
Таиланд? А, вы нет? Япония? Нет?
Thailand, not Thailand. Hong Kong.
А Гонконг? Good. Гонконг.
Hong Kong, good.
Да. Хорошая.
Russia, good. My first night on a Russian train. This is my bed. Good night.
And so after 3 days in my first Russian city, I could conclude that St. Petersburg was a time capsule for the 200 years of the magnificent Russian Empire, evident in the grandness of its buildings to the detail of the Tsars of Fabergé eggs. But behind the appearance is also a devastating story of a city that is appropriately nicknamed Russia's window to the West. Because although it was Peter the Great's European travels that inspired the founding of the city, it was also European ideas of socialism that brought down the Russian Empire and replaced it with the Soviet Union. Join me in the next episode of Modern Grand Tour, where we'll be in Russia's capital city of Moscow, and where we'll discover the atrocities of the gulags, learn about the first man in space, explore Russia's medieval period, and of course, meet the locals.
I don't like border.
Yes.
In Soviet Union, we made a border.
Russia's the best. Everybody else is just mocking us because they fighting of us.
So until next time, Godspeed.